Hey, shalom, shalom from your Dutch Uncle John, here to tell you about Genesis 49. This is the chapter where to throw in 12 sons of Jacob. There is a particular order. This is, see them here. Remember, switched the brides at the last, and he had to wait 7 years. So here is the birth order, and their children were born. He requested that her handmaid, and then she had two, Zilpah. Two more sons, and finally Rachel had her two. The birth order with more famous than others. You can see on Zebulun descendants of note. He had Aaron. Were grandchildren, and Eli was further down, but they were. From him came Boaz, King David, Dan, his Naphtali brought forth Barak and Eliyahu, Elijah. Gad brought Jephthah, one of the Samuel and Deborah. King. Beginning, but then David died and Solomon took over. Wives in 700 lines, and he was worshiping foreign. And some Judah or Yehuda, and the southern kingdoms. It says he who resided with them, for many defected him. So some of the tribes mixed together with the southern. That would be Ephraim, Manasseh, who were adopted by and said, "You two are." Name his sons. But they are Gentiles can be pledged here for us, Gentiles watching. Then those two kingdoms, one and because they had fallen away from God, they had their own temple up in were taken over by Babylon today. Let's go on. Genesis 35:23. Here it lists now there were 12 sons. Then Simeon and Levi. Even the birth order. So Jacob had the two wives, Leah and Bilhah. But if you look at the 7 to Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, and he Leah, and then 7 years later, and God said to Jacob, but Israel shall be that name. Patriarchs, you have Issachar, Resh, spells Israel. He took the first initials. Put the 12 sons in for each of their names. 3,182. We can Star of David here. You know, adds up to 86. 86, 37 equals that total 3182. Remember 37, 3, God's complex unity, his threeness, and 7 is his completion, perfection. 7 is woven all through the Bible. These 4 sons, these 4 sons add up to 1147. These 4 sons add up to 1147. L, 31 times 37 gives you 1147. These 4 sons add up to 880. They don't call it that. 4 times 37. These 6 sons here in the middle of 80. He is 40 times 37, and Christos in Greek adds up to 1480. Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ. David, or of Rephidim or something. Oh, with all this. I'm going to do a whole talk on it. So many examples of stars of David. Jesus Christ, hidden in. By the way, these three add up to alphabet, and the Word of God here. If you take these six, 1697, if you take that phrase, the Word, and it even incorporates then Jacob summoned his sons and said, "Come, listen to Israel, your father." And these, and they're not just prophetic for these boys' lifetime, they up until give them in the birth order. In Genesis 49. Reuben. Ru means look at, behold. Reuben. Name adds up to 259. This is 2931 starting now. Rachel was barren. They conceived and bore a son and named him. Has seen my affliction, surely now. Remember, Leah was the unloved one. It was it says the sons of Levi and Judah and Issachar. That word firstborn in Kof Resh. The Gematria, it adds up to. He is the firstborn. He is the one. But he shall acknowledge the portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his firstborn. So the firstborn son. Genesis 35:22. It came about while Israel and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. They're sleeping together. You know, this reminds me of King David had a Ahithophel, and And Ahithophel turned on David because his grandfather, husband. Fell. Then to Absalom, go into your that you have with you also be strengthened. What stupid advice. Go sleep with all concubines, and that will... David prayed, turned on him. God, Ahithophel's advice foolish. Okay? 7:21, when Reuben Joseph was sent to check on his brothers, Reuben has a little redeeming quality here in Genesis 37:21. Let us not take his life. Hands on him. So, little redeeming quality here. Remember, they all the brothers went to Egypt to get grain. So Joseph was taken out of the pit. Number 2 in front of him, and the other brother, he wants to make sure Benjamin is safe. That him, Joseph, through some trials, accused them of stealing, and then they said to one another, truly we saw the distress of his soul when he pleaded with us upon us. Reuben answered them, saying, and you will and it's Genesis 49 and preeminent and you shall not have blessing of getting a double portion. If you jump ahead to Deuteronomy 33, Deuteronomy 33 is Moses. This is now years later, right? Blessings to the 12 tribes. So in this talk, says, may live and not die, Okay, thanks. Here, by the way, is the Moses order. It also is different from in the Moses. Interesting. Okay. 1. Now the sons of Reuben, father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the sons not enrolled in, prevailed over his belonged to Joseph. The Messianic line is a blessing, but the portion is letting you know the double blessing. Genesis 48:21. God will be with you. The land of your which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. 2 sons, right? So that's 110 years. They're fully adopted, so they 33. Heard that I am. So she named him Simeon. And bore a son, because I have borne him 2 boys. Simeon means hearing. It comes from Shema. Remember Shema? Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Hearing. And what did has heard that I am hearing. Simeon. Simeon and Levi and there was some people in Shechem, okay, and Jacob said, listen, we want to be part of us, you have to. Shechem agreed. We will join you. All the men of Shechem, while they were recovering, sons, his brothers, Simeon and Levi, went into the horrible that you agree accepting them and do such an evil thing. Levi is the third son of Jacob and 6. His name means to is the root. Look at what she said here. Now this time my husband will become, I have borne him. Blessing to Levi. I told you Moses didn't give a Levi, your godly one, whom you tested at Levi, he became the line of the 12 sons. Levi, and the Urim, things that Urim. And that Urim and Thummim, Urim, okay, Urim begins with Aleph, Thummim. So you're getting going to address it with your love, is Yeshua, Jesus, God. This is 49, verse 5. Violence. Let my soul not enter into their counsel. With their anger they slew men, and they lamed oxen. Wrath, for it is cruel in Israel. This is Jacob's blessing, deathbed to Simeon and Levi. Notice he's first them. Genesis 34 is that story where freeze it and watch. It reminds me when you do something evil to them. The Native Americans, they would say that when the Spanish left the Americas, call it they what do you call it? The tendon behind of an animal or of a person, which was a common thing in battles back then. The Lord, for tomorrow at this time I have them slain before Israel. chariots with fire, hamstring. In Samuel 8:4, David captured and David hamstrung the chariot horses, but reserved enough of them. Became a people who your God. As then the second lot fell to families in the midst. Son Simeon, his tribe, midst of Judah. We'll show you. Confirms what Jacob said. So they got mixed in with another tribe. Quote or prophetic. Nothing on that from Moses. Of the tribes listed in Bamidbar, Simeon went. For the tribes or before Benjamin was safe, so he told them, and I will lock him. He, Joseph, turned away from them and he spoke from them and a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day. Their hearing bound. They hear, see, or Simeon is released. This time, it's been 2,000 years. And so very soon, the Jews recognize we already said this, Levi a bit. Minister as Abihu, Eleazar, Ithamar, Aaron's sons. Remember who Aaron was? He's Moses'. Does Moses and Aaron fit into Chronicles 6, 1 through Levi were Gershom, the Kohath, children of Amram were Aaron, their sister. They had three children. the Levitical 33, 8 through 11 on Levi, starting in verse 8 of Levi, godly man whom you that already, who said of his brothers, sons, for they teach your ordinances and your law to Israel, and his substance, and accept the work of his hands, shatter the loins of those who rise. So he gives, Moses here gives Levi to the other 11. Nice. Then the head of the sons of Israel. He spoke to them at Shiloh in the land through Moses to give us cities to live. The sons of Israel gave the Levites for each tribe and there were cities out, not whole chunks of land, but cities, okay, that the Levites could have, because the cities go to a city of listen to this, you were safe so long as you were in that city of refuge, forgiven. You were safe in that city. The high priest died. When the high priest was forgiven, then you could resume and go back for you were guilty of the. Seen that picture? That's the picture of nation. No, there's nowhere that brings any kind of salvation or the cities of refuge. We should do a talk. Three of the sons of Israel gave and look, it says that I will the land. They just got scattered throughout. Time, and she Leah. This time I will praise Yahweh. She stopped bearing. His fourth son, his name, Gematria, adds up to 30. Praise of Vavhe. And you have a dalet. Dalet, remember, door. the door Judah. You go through Judah. Well, you go through Judah. Well, who is descendant? Yehuda's descendant is Jesus. Okay, here's Judah's blessing from his gone up. He lies down as a lion, and as dares rouse him up. Yehuda, your brothers shall praise you. Your father's sons shall bow. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. Who dares rouse him up? Feet until Shiloh comes. And the scepter shall not depart. What is the scepter? If you're a king, it says that the authority will not be the king. From between his feet mean his sons are going to be ruling. The scepter will not depart until Shiloh is descendants comes. John 19, starting in verse 6. Priests and officers crucify. The Roman governor said to them, for I without law, he, Jesus, die, because he made himself out. As a result of this, Pilate made effort. You, everyone who makes. So they cried out, away with him, away. Pilate said to them, shall I crucify your? Priests answered, and authority is passed, so the Messiah must have come. And who was that Shiloh? Yeshua Jesus. He is the Messiah. Of 49, Genesis. He ties his foal. He washes his garments in wine, and his are dull from wine, and his he ties his foal, his young colt, And statements in the book of John 9 as tying he is that Messiah. He's going to use purple robes. Eyes are dull. The produce he has. And when you go to the Brit Hadashah, it opens up, friends, of Yeshua. Abraham was the father of Issachar. Issachar was the father of Jacob, of Yehuda, and his way down, verse all the way down. Okay. Okay. Square priest and king. If he's a king, he has to get around that. Or salam to the Most High God. And Abraham kings much earlier priest of God. God who met is returning from the Abraham apportioned a tenth of his name, which is or end of life, but made like observe how great this man was. Spoils, and those indeed of the sons of Levi to collect it. These are descended from Abraham. Abraham, and bless the one who had in this case receives them, of whom it is that he lives on. Even Levi, who received, for he was still in the loins of his through Levi. But Levi, the greater priest, whenever Abraham met conceived, right? through Melchizedek. So Melchizedek, through Abraham came subordinate to Melchizedek. Subordinate through Levi, he is Melchizedek. It's hard. Basically, he's a king who comes. Jesus is the priest. Greater. Talk about Leah from kind of. I feel and Rachel were sisters, and just this was Rachel over Leah. Rachel, so there has to be some kind of there's a constant humiliation. She's the unloved. There's the sisterhood with Rachel. It's even named her children. Genesis 29:32. She named him Reuben. Has seen my 33. Lord heard and hated. 34. She became pregnant again. Now this joined Levi. She has the fourth son. Finally gets the picture here. This time, and she named him Yehuda, praise. Then she stopped having children. For the son. Look at the name she gave him. And the door to Yahweh goes through. Everything is piling on, and praise. Jail. They were falsely, they were beaten. After the jail, right? No, they and the doors swung open, and the jailer repented. The whole family accepted Yeshua. His reward. And the biggest reward was of Messiah. This that was a nice honor that her giving that. Okay. All right, and he was also of Egypt. Went to Leah. Genesis 30, verse 19. It says, Leah bore a sixth son to good gift. Will dwell with me. Named him Zebulun. Son of Jacob, and named him Zebulun. Up to 101, an alternate spelling. The vav, and one time it does not. Zebulun will dwell at his flank shall 13. I have a shore. Zebulun. Word is the word for sea. He sees at the seashore. The seas, plural, will look at a map. Look at Zebulun's land. In the seas, land is between the Mediterranean seas. They just say dwells between the seas, plural, yamim. Towards Sidon. Okay. You know, Zebulun, he said, hence. Come to Isaiah 9, 1 and 2. But he treated the land of, but later on he shall make it on the walk in darkness will see great light. Those who live in a dark he shall make it glorious. Walk in darkness will see light. What great light be? Zebulun, he's made glorious. that those who live in a dark land, them. Now when Jesus Nazareth, he came and settled in the region of Zebulun and Naphtali. The land and the land of Naphtali by Gentiles, the people of the land, on them a light. Uh, 14, let's have a mix it up a bit. Verse 14, now and mother Leah. Why does Leah? Rachel saw it and wanted them. It is supposed to. So when Reuben gives them to Leah, or my husband, wants babies. Look at verse 15 of Genesis 30. But Leah said to her, my son's mandrakes, he may lie with you tonight. This is complicated a little bit. Remember, Jacob loves Rachel. Every night. Leah never gets to, if he's never who wants these, they may help produce babies for her. I'll let you have your these mandrakes, they're going to have a plant root. 30, verse 16. When Jacob came in from the field in the evening, then Leah must come in to me. I have surely hired you with my right. I gave heed to Leah, and she conceived. I gave him Issachar. Issachar adds up to 830. It means Leah and Jacob's son. It means, okay, and she all right. We do know from 1 Chronicles 12 as one of the times with what Israel should do. were at their command. So we know that could also be like Issachar, and these are some crazy times. It's very biblical end of Issachar. You can break it down. What does it actually mean? Well, we talked about the 6 different Ish, Gever, and in the New Testament, the word Sakar, Ish, Sakar, man of hire. Folds. And was pleasant, he band of servants. So he compares him to a. But that's not a bad thing. And a donkey. I didn't know this, but a donkey or two in that mix. Comes at night, or a bear or something, to attack the sheep and fight. Stubborn donkey will fight to protect the group. The sheepfolds, just taking it easy. Bowed his shoulder. So he's okay with doing work out higher. Out somebody in need. How do I serve you? God says, you want to serve me? So Issachar is doing what should be done. To serve one another is a blessing. What Yeshua Jesus wanted. And Issachar always battle. Okay? Whenever so was Barak, into they rushed at his heels. All these being men of war who helped in with David king over one mind to make David king. Bought food, the flour cakes, fig cakes, raisins, wine, oil, oxen, and sheep. Issachar in times of First Chronicles 12, we read this one. Saul's kingdom over him in accordance with the word of the Lord. What Israel should do, 200. So, and being compared to a donkey, huge prophecy here. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Jerusalem. Your king is coming to you. He is humble, on a donkey. Mountain called Olivet, the mountain. Go into the village opposite you. Sat, loose, and if anyone asks, because the Lord has beautiful, beautiful type, and be compared to a donkey, knowing that led the Messiah into Jerusalem on his. We'll do to God be the glory. We'll see you soon. God bless. Bye bye. This is just a little bonus right now. Let the cat out of the bag. All right, a bit like what was coming. Okay, but let's sing. He says of Zebulun, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, and you're going forth." They will call peoples to the mountains, sacrifices, for they will draw out these and the hidden. This is blessing on these boys. And the hidden treasures of the sand, blessing them with sand. The north, between Galilee called Silicon Wadi. It dries away quickly, but it's a body. Tech today. Moses' blessing said, and the hidden treasures of the sand. Silica. Maybe that's what Moses future today. Bless. Bye.